Keep your spine straight, close your eyes, take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in, hold it there. Om. Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Yoantah Pravishya Mama Vacham Imam Prasuptam Sanjeevayatyakhila Shakti Dharasvadhamna Amnyanshcha hastacharana-shravanatvagadin Pranam namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam Pranam namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam Samacharana sarojam Sangranilam-budabham Jaghana nihita panim Vandanam Vandananam Karuna tulasi malam Kandharam kanjanetram Swadaya dhavalahasam Vitthalam chintayami Vitthalam chintayami. Pranams to the Lord. Pranams to all the Mahatmas in tonight's Eknathi Bhagawat session. We are in chapter 7 and we have to start from OV number 201. Over to you, Ganesh.
When is that war? Every warrior was eager to kill the other warrior. This worldly life is full of great sorrow. This worldly life is a kind of dark, deep well. In it, dangerous serpents like passion, anger, etc. are lurching. Thorns like gossip and competition are everywhere. I am fallen in such misery. Having fallen in such a misery, I am suffering from the curse of Brahmins and I am mourning and crying due to pain. I do not have intellect capable of freeing myself from it. So, oh, the ocean of grace, oh, kind Krishna, please lift me, free me by teaching me about the self.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Prayena Manujaloke Lokatattva Vichakshanaha Samudharanti Atmanam Atmanaiva Shubhashaya.
Meaning of the verse. The Lord said, generally people in the world who are very clever in philosophy lift themselves up from evil things by their own efforts. When a person is possessed by a ghost, he begins to babble anything, but an exorcist utters some chants and throws upon him the charged rice. Similarly, there was already possession taken by the 5 great ghosts, elements. Over and above the Samandha, a very powerful ghost of estrangement from Krishna entered in his consciousness, as a result of which Uddhava, like a child, was totally afraid. Thus, 208, thus Sri Krishna, the exorcist, set out to banish the ghost called Masoba, which was the ego in the mind of people, by using the fact of Uddhava being possessed as a reason for action. 209. Sri Krishna is throwing the charged rice of the story of Yadu and Advaduta for ousting the ego, which was likened to the demon Mahishasura. Sri Krishna is brandishing his weapon. 210. Thus Sri Krishna said to Uddhava, now please be very careful. Having come to this region of death, one has to free oneself from this world. 211. Actually, in the spiritual path, the mother or the father cannot help. The son, Brother, daughter, or wife is never helpful. 212. The in laws do not help. The son in law does not help. Only one who dwells in our body and uses the power of discrimination is the really helpful factor. 213. Seekers on this path of liberation who are wise and whose thoughts are about the philosophy of spirituality observe the process of cause and effect, and using their intellect, they pass beyond this worldly life. 214. They think of what is permanent and what is temporary, then give up the things which are temporary and very happily use their willpower, abide by the permanent for their own welfare. 215. Please understand that the principle which is eternal, which remains always undisturbed after giving up the ephemeral, is my own nature. And the practice of seekers is of the same nature. And they meditate on that permanent principle of life, permanent principle, as if they themselves are that principle. I and they become one in their meditation. 216. Thus, by continuous concentration on me, imagining their unity with me, they become one with me, just as the worm becomes the fly, blue beetle, and thus emancipate themselves.
आत्मनो गुरुरात्मैव पुरुषस्य विशेषतः यत्प्रत्यक्षानुमानाभ्यां श्रेयोसावनुविन्दते.
Meaning of the verse. The Atman itself is the guide of one's own self, especially in the case of man, human being. By direct perception and inference, he can work out his own good. 217. Please understand that in the animals and birds, there is knowledge of what is good for them and what is not good. Then how can the human being not have it in his being? It is a natural, intuitive knowledge. 218. Everybody has clear concept about whether what he is doing will be good for him or not. He has this knowledge as intuition. 219. Please remember that one who drops his evil thinking and never touches by his mind any binding objects of the world becomes his own guru and saves himself from the torments of hell. 220. One who is fed up with being born through a womb, one who is tired of dying again and again, and is very keen about the ending of the chain of birth-death. 221. One who has no blind attachment towards his wife and children, and one who is not getting sleep due to the anxiety caused by the thought that he is not finding any good thing which may be helpful to his freedom through his life period, is nearly eaten up by time, is really having some hope of liberation. 222. Just consider your own life. Your childhood was gulped by time while you were aware of it. Time ate up the very prime of your youth, and that very time is hovering around your old age. 223. Old age is surely a kind of net, but time is watchful to end that also. The world does not become aware of the total destruction of the life, which is taking place at a very fast pace. 224. Every moment is being wasted, and no useful work is being done in the direction of gaining freedom. And the great whirlpool of birth and death is menacingly in front of the inner eyesight. 225. It is in the life of a human being only that the four things, namely the heaven, the hell, the karma, and Brahman, are evident. So one should give up all bad action and adopt a life of the seeker of liberation. 226. He broods that though the human body is destined for freedom, it is being wasted. Alas, thus he deeply gets disturbed by his thought and being very earnest. 227. The worldly life is understood to be impermanent by the very evident fact of ever-changing scheme of things, and therefore he does not get entangled in it. He really becomes apathetic towards the enjoyments of this region of death. 228. He also logically imagines that all the pleasures in the outer world must be destructible, and there is fall from the path of freedom, implied in those pleasures also, and does not allow his mind to be touched by dreaming about those pleasures. 229. He utters an anguished cry. When will God bless me? When will the bondage of this worldly life be snapped? When will the self knowledge which gives great joy of bliss be attained? 230. O Sri Hari, hasten, be kind to me who is so miserable. O Sri Krishna, who are the protector of devotees, please lift me from this ocean of samsara. 231. Thus he is panting for self knowledge, just as the fish is panting for water. When he experiences waves of ecstasy after ecstasy because of the devotion and the love for God, he has no sense of protection of his body. 232. In this world, some lost the great opportunity of being born as human beings. Some neglected it because they were non believers. Some were grasped by the pride of their own knowledge, and some were destroyed by their engrossment in the sense objects. 233. Some were deluded by the pride of their own method of spiritual efforts. Some went on postponing the actual penance and died without doing anything. Some were misled in wrong directions, and the real practice of spirituality was stopped completely. 234. Such a man finds that though his mind has understood the importance of discrimination, the desires for objects do not subside, and being disturbed, he begins to meditate on Narayana. 235. Sri Krishna says to Uddhava, please note that only he who has discrimination as well as desireless mind can become his own guru. 236. I myself illumine his intellect with the light of Viveka, the discriminative power, and by that he inwardly gains the self-knowledge. 237. Dear Uddhava, do not have any doubt that I assume the same form which the devotee holds dear in his heart. 238. You see, Uddhava, the most necessary thing here is a very crystal clear intellect. Then only self-knowledge comes like a flash.
Purushatve mandhiraha sankhya yoga vishadaha. Vishadaha? Visharadaha. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Visharada. I think the R is missing out over there. Purushatve mandhiraha sankhya yoga visharadaha avistaram prapashyanti sarvashaktyupabrumhitam.
Meaning of the verse. In their human birth, persons of ripe judgment and knowing of the secret of Sankhya and Yoga, the paths of knowledge and action, directly and clearly perceive me as self-endowed with all faculties. 239. Thus the man who is completely desireless and has discriminative faculty thinks along the line of the philosophy of Sankhya and Yoga, and he attains self-knowledge without delay. 240. Those who have abiding discernment get to know the self. They gradually see by their inward eye that principle which is the all-pervading and omnipotent essence of life. 241. They see the vision of that power from which all the powers are born, which gives strength to all the powers, and which is not known by any of them. 242. O Uddhava, how many things have I to tell you? I have brought into existence many bodies, but only the human body among them is my most favorite, because those who wield that body can easily become one with me.
Ekadvitricatushpadaha bahupadastatha padaha bhavaya santi purasrishtaha tasa me paurushi priya.
Meaning of the verse. Numerous forms of life, numerous forms of living beings, some with 1 foot, some with 2, 3, 4, or many feet, and also without feet, stand evolved by me. Of them all, the human body is the dearest to me. 243. I have created bodies with 1 foot, many bodies with 2 feet, and some beautiful creatures with 3 and 4 feet. 244. For serpents and others, I have not given any feet, while there are some having many feet created by me. 245. There are innumerable such bodies on the earth created by me, but those beings do not know me, and therefore they have no real intelligence. 246. I have created the human body with part of my power of knowledge, so that men can understand me as the creator of everything. 247. I am fond of the body of human beings, using which they gain my status, and it is the reason why Vedas have praised the human body. Gods also desire to be born in the human body. 248. Human beings use this body by the help of which they come to me through various approaches. Thus, Lord Krishna told Uddhava about his love for human form.
अत्र मां मार्गयन्त्यब्धा युक्ता हेतुभिरीश्वरम् गृह्यमाणैर्गुणैर्लिङ्गैः अग्राह्यमनुमानतः.
Meaning of the verse. Here, men who are my devotees search for me by knowing my gunas and signs, though I am not reachable by mere logic. I, the Ishvara, the all-powerful God. 249. By being born into human race, they search me who is known as the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer of the three worlds. 250. They use surmise, logic, and arguments to think about me, but they conjecture, and the knowledge being gained through is also mundane, which fact they come to know, and they realize me as quite different from and beyond all that. 251. Though they may project any number of theories about me, I am not to be realized through them. You must note that only those who are devoid of any pride and then try to envisage my true nature can have the revelation of my nature. 252. Only he who has absolutely no desire, no expectation of any kind, can reach gradually the absolute Brahman. And he should be recognized as a true warrior who has girdled his loins to fight with time as death. 253. Our face is existing by itself, no doubt about it, but can be seen only if there is a clear mirror. Similarly, when the intellect is endowed with discrimination, there is the beginning of Atman being illuminated within oneself. 254. I shall now tell you an ancient history of the dialogue between the king Yadu and the sage and the sage of sage. And the sage Avadhuta, which is enlightening for the seekers.
अत्राप्युदाहरन्तीमम् इतिहासं पुरातनम् अवधूतस्य संवादम् यदोरमिततेजसः.
Meaning of the verse. In this context, people give the example of this ancient history, which is about the dialogue between Avadhuta and the king Yadu, who was very brilliant. 255. Govinda happily said, O Uddhava, our ancestor, the king Yadu, had a dialogue about the knowledge of Brahman with Avadhuta, Dattatreya, the Supreme Lord, the embodiment of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. 256. Yadu was like the sun among Kshatriyas. That king used to make the moonlight, like aura of other kings, faded away before him. 257. He learned from Avadhuta the signs and qualities of a guru, and therefore he attained this Sayujya Mukti, or the final liberation. I'm going to tell you the same story.
Avadhutan dvijam kanchit charantamakuto bhayam kavim niriksha tarunam yaduh papracha dharmavit.
Meaning of the verse. That religious king Yadu saw a very pure Brahmin, young and intelligent looking, who was roaming about in the forest at his sweet will, having no fear at all of anything, and asked him a question. 258. Yadu saw a certain monk of a very high order walking in the forest. He was having a brilliant aura of the self-luminosity and was happily moving with an easy gait. 259. Yadu observed that monk and saw he was wearing sacred thread, and therefore thought that he must be a Brahmin having true knowledge. 260. Yadu had gone to enjoy a forest trip. At that time, he saw the monk fearlessly and having no hesitancy in his style of walking, directly approaching the place where Yadu was staying. 261. He was containing within his own body his vital force and had achieved equilibrium in the pranas and apanas movement without any effort. Beautiful. 262. He looked upon the world with a strange calm and aloofness. He was not looking at any object with any interest. He was so sensitive that his whole body was the observant vision, and he appeared to be observer only. 263. He had no concept that he was walking in the forest, and his consciousness was as if pervading all the environment. 264. He had no concept that he was walking. He was himself. 264. He was himself the action, the performance of action, and the actor. The doing of action as a separate factor had surrendered its identity to him. 265. The ego about the possession of body had immediately disappeared as soon as it was realized that the body is an illusion. 266. The yajna pit of discrimination between the ephemeral and the eternal had kindled the great fire of Brahman, and it had burnt the houses of all the ashrams and made him to be beyond the limits of any status in life. 267. There was a book containing the instructions of how to listen to the sciences and philosophies, which were turned to ashes, and even the ashes were blown away. 268. The vows of observing something or denying oneself something, as also the method of worship of the five gods, was gutted by that fire. There was a bundle of the past karma and the karma being performed. That bundle was also burnt. 269. Yadu saw this great being walking happily and moving gracefully in the state of bliss. 270. He had smeared the ashes of a state of projections of thought and counter thought. That is why the name Avadhuta was used for him. Otherwise, he was a Brahmin. 271. He was called Avadhuta because he had washed all the worldly life around him. Otherwise, he was a great Brahmin. 272. He was Avadhuta because he had washed off the pride. Only such a man is a yogi and a pure being. One who is troubled by ego falls in the pit of birth and actions. 273. One may think that he was old, but as his body was an illusion, the question of it being old was absurd. Old age had no entry there, and that was the main cause of his eternal youth. 274. Further, he was having such knowledge which was always new and never became stale. He was enjoying it anew every moment, and so he was brimming with youth. 275. He had conquered the sense of duality by power of self-knowledge, and thus he was wandering freely without fear. 276. Thus Yadu confirmed in his mind that the monk was having all the signs of a great being endowed with self-knowledge, and a great sense of respect about him and faith in him arose in the mind of Yadu. He became very humble.
Ariyo.
276.
We can pause over here. Yes. So give your thoughts, Renisha, what you felt. Please don't mind my camera off because the net is not picking it. So at least now I could begin to hear continuously. Otherwise, I was not hearing also anything. So please don't mind that. Yes, Venisha, your thoughts?
Nothing. I mean, it's very humbling.
Mhm.
And it's very beautiful. I mean, I just remember that, when you would always say that the mark of a self-realized man is, it's not something that the person speaks or dresses as, or it's, it's something that you just see in the being of the person, and
Yeah. Beautiful. Anybody has any other thoughts?
I think all those last verses I was going on underlining because each one of them are full of
Yes.
meaning. I mean, the two things that talk about of this enlightened person is that the desirelessness and the what you call discrimination of mind. That means to make decisions. So the desirelessness and discrimination, and then also how to get over samsara. There was the initial verses were talking about like yeah,
Mm.
how samsara is so deluding and so
Yes.
entangling. Yeah.
Yes. And time and again, we are seeing that our kings were almost sannyasis. Each our in our history, like Yadu is a king, but all our kings were not simply like roaring in the wealth and riches and ahankari. Eventually, like we have seen so many rulers, they were selfless and they would drop the kingdom and they are ready to go. They're not attached to the kingdom. So there's, which I don't think so anywhere else we see this. You are a king means certain form of pride is associated and attachment to that post is, and that everybody should, they command respect from all, and there is certain to give up all that or to be into it and not get attached to it. So all these symptoms were seen of a great jnani. So I just remembered Vidyaranyaji again of his empire, and then he has written and he became Shankaracharya, and he has written all those books which Panchadashi and all which we read. So he just dropped that empire and then he's become that order Shankaracharya. So now again over here I see the same thing, that in our history we learn that the kings are non-attached. So that comes to our Ramji. The king in a human form, and yet he could just drop it and go when he's asked to go to the forest. So, time and again from all directions, it's only this coming. And plus, one more addition in today's Gita class, we were doing this karma, vikarma, and akarma. And same thing got mentioned over here. So I said, okay, how thoughts are linked, like how actions, inactions, and improper actions are related. Anybody has any other thoughts to say?
I like the verse 222 to 224, which talks about the time, how the time is gone so fast. Time never
Mhm.
stops. As a child,
Yes.
youth, right? And
Mm,
only
beautifully picked up. So nice. Yeah, very
so
beautiful.
we have to make use of this time.
Whatever time we have. Yes.
Yeah, I think the fish out of water was the one which you had the first class of the Kaivalyadam Upanishad, which you had told us about, that your quest for spiritual knowledge has to be that much, and then it'll come to you. How how a fish gasps for air when it's out of water. So ironically, there is the chief economic advisor currently. Or I don't know if he still is. Anand is is one of our friends, and many years ago I had seen him on a television show, and he was wearing a suit, and he was in the world of money, but he just, I mean, I didn't know him personally at that time, and I just heard what he was speaking, and I said, my God, this man is so illumined. You could pretty much take out the suit and put him in a veshti, and he would be spouting spiritual knowledge. And I've always felt he's had that kind of a discrimination power in any field, and perhaps he must be a detached man. At that time, one didn't know that he would go so far in life, but he didn't have. I mean, he could see money as an instrument of economics and how to bring equity to the poor rather than just multiply money for the rich. And he's come far in life, so I guess he must have been of this cadre.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that comes, the English words, status versus stature. And I feel those words really get applied in this context, because there are so many people who get attached to their role and their position in life. And, when that status drops, they're like, there's nothing in them. And then you see people of real stature who are these self-realized souls, right? It's got nothing to do with their stars and stripes. And their dharma, I guess, that holds them intact through ups and downs.
Yes, that's the wisdom, no? When the wise see the futility in the world, with the material world, when they are holding on the higher, then from that position which they have acquired, they are acting. But when we hold the world as a higher, then for us the world is very important. Like what status we carry, which car, which house, it becomes so very crucial for. So it's like the same thing, but the from which floor they are looking, the vision is different. So they have reached on the higher floors, they have got a bird's eye view from there, seeing the futility of. That's why in Gita and all we get those verses, right? Like how the moth is running to the fire, how the river is running to the ocean. So the wise are seeing that it is ultimately it is so very kshana bhangur. It's so very momentary. And we are not seeing the moment. So that's the wisdom. But at least God has put us on the path. So maybe He gives us the vision to see something higher. And this is how we could also polish ourselves, seeing how Yadu king is, and more stories would come. So let His grace be on us that we hold the scriptures dear to us. Okay, on that note, let's end for today and join tomorrow to see like what he's going to ask now to that monk. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnat
Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Hari Om. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Vinisha, for such a brilliant reading. Amazing.
Oh, it was absorbing. It was very absorbing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hari Om. Let's catch up
Hari.
tomorrow. Hari Om. Hari
Thank you,
Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.